guys, we're testing the power of this rod. Well, that's why you have a big heavy rod. But before we get fishing, we got to talk about the setup. So when I am flipping and pitching, I go with a dedicated flipping and pitching stick. Now, if you don't have one, don't worry. When you pick out a flipping and pitching setup, you want to go with something in a 7 to 7.5-ish foot length. Remember, the longer rod you get, the little bit of extra power you're going to have when you set that hook and winch the fish out of the cover. As far as a reel goes, I don't go anything below a 7/0 to 1 reel. Nothing fancy about it, just a hard working reel that gets the fish out of the wood. Now you can go up to something a little faster if you want. The faster the better, I think, because as soon as you get those fish hooked, you need to get their heads turned and out of the cover quick. As far as the line on that reel, you can see that I do not have braid. I always go with a nylon line. So I would go with 100% fluorocarbon or a copolymer, a fluorocarbon coated line. Always go heavy. I honestly don't ever go anything under 17 pound. I like to fish 20. That's my guaranteed go-to. I'm the most comfortable with that. So what about your weight, hooks, and baits? Well, when it comes to weights, I don't ever use anything besides tungsten. Find your favorite tungsten brand. There's a whole ton of them out there. And go with as light as you can get away with. Now, the deeper it goes, I tend to get a little bit heavier. The water behind me that we're going to be fishing is only about 4 or 5 foot deep, the deepest where I can reach. So I tend to go with a 3/8 ounce. That's usually my go-to reach for weight. You can drop down to something like a quarter as the water gets a little bit shallower. Of course, if you're on a boat or fishing out a little bit deeper, bump up to a 1/2 ounce. That's a good go-to if you're fishing from a boat or deeper water. So you can always go heavier if you need to, or if you want to slow the fall rate, go to a lighter weight. Hook selection, I keep it pretty simple here. There's really only 2 kinds that most anglers are going to be using. A heavy wire EWG like this happens to have the keeper on it. So in case you are bringing over a lot of wood and cover, it's not going to pull that bait down on your hook as much. You know what I'm talking about. You're fighting the bait and it always is doing this, slipping down. Well, a hook with the keeper will help with that. So you can go in EWG. I personally tend to go with those most of the time. That hook sits flat on the back of the bait and I have better luck with it in cover. Now, a lot of anglers swear by a heavy wire flipping hook. I tend to go with a 4 or 5/0, but of course match the size of the hook to the size of your soft plastic. Usually 4 or 5/0, and I always go heavy wire. Remember, you're using a heavy power rod, you're using heavy lines, so you have to have a heavy hook to match it. In case you get that fish in there and you're pulling them out, you don't want to bend out that hook. Finally, there are a lot of people going to the twist lock hooks. The twist lock hook, the front of it twists into the front of the bait, so you don't have to worry about that bait falling down as much. Those are pretty handy. I don't use them a lot. I do have some in there. Need to give them a try more often. Now, when it comes to the soft plastic that you're going to put on there, sky's the limit. If you're fishing real heavy cover, I tend to go with something with less appendages, something like a sweet beaver or a cut-tail worm, but it's really up to you. You can even go with something like a little Strike King Rage Menace. It's just got 2 little flappers on back. It doesn't have a whole bunch of appendages on it. Remember, the more appendages that you have, the more likely it is to get stuck in all those little branches. Additionally, the more appendages and kicking stuff it has, the slower that bait's gonna fall. So if you want something a little bit more aerodynamic, you want it to fall through there, go something like that. Of course, the missile bait DEBO'S, those are very popular these days too. And honestly, it's really hard to beat a Strike King Rage craw. Any type of craw imitation bait, especially around a full moon when those crawdads and crayfish and whatever the heck you want to call them are going to be out, crawdad bait is awesome. Go with something kind of wicked, crazy, wild with a bunch of flappers on it. And of course, with the hot summer air like we have now, the fish are more active, they're more aggressive, more willing to feed. So I do like something with action on it. I don't like the flat things that just float down. I want it to have some sort of kicking action in these hot summer months. So enough talking, let's get to fishing. All right, so for all you bank anglers out there, what do you actually do? What are you doing when you walk up to a big piece of wood like this, or pieces of wood like that, or out there, or out here? What do you pick apart? Where do you start? Well, for me, it always starts with the outsides, insides, and then farthest. So you always want to start with the closest outside spots that you can. That way you're not disturbing everything. If I throw all the way out there and get a fish and drag it through all this, I've just scared everything between me and that fish that I hooked out there. So always start close on the outsides. Then work your way in close. So work your way toward the middle. So what I mean, let's start on the outside. Outside corner of this right over here. And when you're pitching, the actual act of pitching is just lowering the front of your rod and swinging that bait out. Now let me know. If you would like to see an in-depth tutorial on how to pitch, let me know. Drop a comment below. I would love to do a whole dedicated video just to that, because pitching is one of my favorites. But I'm just gonna hit right out here on the outside of this little piece of wood right here. Just gonna give it a couple pops. Okay, and if I don't have anything there on the outside, I'm gonna bring it back in. Now, I would hit the other side. So I'm gonna start on this side over here, right at the edge of this little piece of wood here. See if I get any bites. Give it a couple pops. Hit a piece of wood there. Couple pops, and I'm slowly going to bring it over these pieces of wood. As I hit pieces, slowly bring it over. You never know when they're going to be inside there, so you always want to pay attention. Now, as I start working here, pick out the other outside piece. Now notice, if I catch a fish here, I'm going to be bringing it right out here along this outside. It's not going to disturb everything between me and all that stuff out there. So outside's first. Now after I've hit this inside piece, I'm convinced there's not any fish out there. Oh, that's another thing. Debo, you didn't even touch on that. What a noob. Your weight stop. Depends on if you want to use a weight stop or not. If it's really, really thick brush, I always have my weight pegged. That just means you put a little bobber stop up here, slide it down, and your weight can't move. Your weight's going to stay there just like that, no matter what happens. In a little bit less thick cover like this, I tend to leave it unpegged. Yeah, I'm going to run a chance of it, but I leave it unpegged so that bait has just a little bit more natural fall action. So now that I've picked apart the outside of this cover, I'm going to go inside of it, but I don't want to go all the way far yet. I'm going to go inside the cover a little bit more, but stay close. Go right here in the middle. I felt it hit a branch there. Bring it up and down a couple times over these branches. See if we can locate anything. Always feeling the tip of my rod. Jiggle it a couple times, see if I can get anything. If not, bring it up and out. So I'm going to pick apart the outsides, the insides that are close, and then I'm going to start going farther. Now, a big thing you want to remember when you're bank fishing like this is how in the heck am I going to get that fish out? If I throw all the way out there over that big piece of cover, right in the middle of it, how the heck am I going to get that fish back to me? Now, on top of that, not only how am I going to get it back to me, but placement is key. Man, when it's real hot like this, these fish are finicky. So you have to look real carefully at the spots you're hitting. Always try to get right next to the wood. Don't get way out from it a foot. Get right up next to those pieces, right, so it falls right down in next to the piece of wood. Those fish are going to be nose up to it. They're literally going to be, if this is the branch, they're literally going to be nose up, just like that. Trust me. They stick tight to cover when it gets real warm like this. Now I want to keep making presentations. That brings me to my next point. Stay patient and stay diligent. If it's a really good piece of cover, man, there's only 2 good pieces of cover on your pond, hit them. You might have to throw 10, 15, 20 times that piece of cover from different angles to get that fish to bite. You're not just going to throw in there a couple times and yeah, there's no fish there. Be diligent. Okay, now as we start to move, you want to be careful as you go to new spots, especially if you bank anglers. You don't want to be traipsing around, knocking through like a gorilla. I can hit this spot from here. So again, if I'm picking apart this new spot, where would you all go first? I'm going to go close. So I'm going to hit right here, right on this front edge where it's close. I'm going to start moving out toward the outside, everything close to me. Then I'm going to start moving into that brush a little bit more. Once I do that, there's no need for me to throw over it. On the bank, I'm going to walk around and hit the other side. Close, inside, and then I'm going to start going far away. Now I know it's hard for you bank anglers out there. You got to go through a tropical rainforest to get a pitch out there, but I'm telling you, try to be as stealthy as possible. The thing is, you can kind of go to a modified side pitch when you're trying to get a little bit more distance like this over all this tropical rainforest stuff. Don't be afraid to kick it out there a little bit farther. I happen to catch somebody else's line. Yeah, love it when that happens. That's why you go with the heavy line. What? I lost my... Whoa, what in the world? Apparently somebody was frogging from shore and they've been watching DEBO'S fishing. Look, they trimmed their frog. Love it. What in the world? These still have sharp hooks.
What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing?
Hopefully not. Hopefully there's more fish here. That's a good fish. That is a good fish we just hooked, boys and girls. That is a solid fish. Oh, bucket mouth, what? That's a bucket. Holy smokes.